I probably should have listened to the stories about Grateful Ridge. The locals talk about the abandoned military zone just outside town, but they don't go near it. They say it's cursed, haunted by the ghosts of soldiers who died in a so-called training accident decades ago. Me, I've always been drawn to places like that, to the stories that scare everyone else away. So, I went looking for it. The zone was exactly as you'd imagine a graveyard of rusted metal and decaying buildings, slowly being swallowed by nature. It took me hours of searching, but I finally found it. The bunker entrance. It was barely visible, hidden under a thick layer of dead weeds and a massive, corroded sheet of metal. According to the few old records I could find, this place had been sealed for over 50 years. With a crowbar and a lot of effort, I pried the metal cover open. A wave of cold air washed over me. But it wasn't the stale, musty air you'd expect from a sealed tomb. It was fresh. Cold, yes, but breathable. That was the first red flag, the first sign that something was deeply wrong. It felt like the bunker was alive, like it was breathing. I clicked on my headlamp, its beam cutting through the oppressive darkness, and started my descent down the steep concrete stairs. The air grew colder with every step, and an unnerving silence pressed in from all sides. The only sound was the crunch of my boots on the gritty floor. The silence felt heavy, unnatural, as if it was deliberately holding its breath, waiting for me. The stairs opened into a long, narrow hallway. The walls were bare concrete, but they were covered in scratches. At first, I thought it was just random vandalism, but as my light moved across the surface, I realized they were names. Hundreds of them, etched into the stone with desperate, frantic energy. John P., Michael R., David L. It wasn't a memorial, it was a roster. It felt like I was walking through a massive, underground tombstone. And then, my flashlight began to flicker. It was a new light, with fresh batteries, but it sputtered and dimmed, plunging me into near-total darkness for a few seconds before coming back to life. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was deep underground, alone, with a failing light source. I told myself it was just the cold affecting the batteries, a rational explanation for an irrational fear. But I knew, deep down, that wasn't it. The bunker was playing with me. As I walked deeper into the labyrinth of corridors, the silence was broken. I heard something. A sound so faint I thought I was imagining it at first. It was breathing. A slow, deep, rhythmic inhale and exhale. It was close. Too close. It sounded like it was right behind me, right over my shoulder. I spun around, my light beam slicing through the darkness, but there was nothing there. Just an empty hallway stretching back into the gloom. My own breathing was ragged, my hands shaking. I tried to steady myself. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling, echoing down the concrete corridor. I expected silence in return, the kind of absolute stillness that would tell me I was truly alone and just losing my mind. But silence isn't what I got. The breathing stopped. And then, a perfect mimic of my own voice whispered back from the darkness, "Hello?" It was my voice, but it was hollow, empty. It was like an echo that had taken on a life of its own. Every trace of bravado I had vanished in that instant. Pure, primal fear took over. I wanted to run, to scramble back up the stairs and never look back. But something held me there. Curiosity? Stupidity? I don't know. I had to see what was at the end of this hallway. I pushed forward, my light flickering more erratically now, the breathing sound returning, this time seemingly coming from all directions at once. It was a chorus of slow, deep breaths, surrounding me, suffocating me. Finally, I reached a heavy steel door at the end of the corridor. A faded sign read "Control Room." The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and stepped inside. For a moment, nothing happened. The room was filled with old, dead machinery, banks of monitors, consoles covered in dust, and chairs that had long since rotted away. I swept my light across the room, and then it happened. With a loud hum, the power surged to life. The dusty overhead lights flicker on, bathing the room in a sickly yellow glow. And every single monitor, dozens of them, all lit up at once. They all showed the same image, me, standing in the middle of the control room, viewed from a camera high up in the corner. My own terrified face stared back at me from every screen. Then, a voice crackled through the ancient speakers embedded in the walls. It was a distorted, raspy voice, like gravel being dragged across metal. "You came back," it said. My blood ran cold. I've never been here before," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. A dry, chilling laugh echoed through the room. "Oh, but you have," the voice rasped. "You just don't remember. None of you ever do." The voice went on to explain. The training accident was a lie. There was an event, something that happened in this bunker that defied explanation. Every soldier who died down here never truly left. The bunker didn't trap them, it kept them. Their physical bodies faded away, but their consciousness, their presence, was absorbed into the very walls of this place. They became part of the bunker itself. As the voice spoke, a deafening slam echoed behind me. I turned to see the heavy steel door to the control room had shut. I ran to it, pushing, pulling, but it was sealed tight. I was trapped. Panic set in, raw and overwhelming. I looked back at the monitors, and the image had changed. They no longer showed me. Instead, they showed the whole way outside, the walls I had just walked past. New names were appearing on the concrete, scratching themselves into existence. I watched, horrified, as fresh letters were carved into the stone by an unseen hand. And then, I saw it dot my name, appearing letter by letter among the others. The breathing I had heard earlier grew louder, more intense, but it was different now. It was no longer coming from the hallway or the speakers. It felt closer. I put a hand to my chest, trying to calm my racing heart, and I realized with a sickening jolt of terror, the breathing was coming from inside me. It wasn't my breath. It was deep, slow, and alien. It was the bunker breathing through my lungs. It was claiming me, just as it had claimed all the others. I don't know how I got out. I have no memory of what happened after that moment. My next clear thought was finding myself miles away from the military zone, collapsed on the side of the road at dawn, covered in dirt and scratches. I went back later, of course. I had to know. But the entrance was gone. There was no rusted metal sheet, no hole in the ground, no sign a bunker had ever been there. It was just flat and disturbed earth. It's been months now, and I try to tell myself it was a nightmare, a hallucination brought on by fear and isolation. But sometimes, in the dead of night, when the world is quiet, I hear it. That slow, deep breathing. And I know it's not a memory. The bunker may be gone, but it remembers me. And a part of it is still with me, waiting. Thank you for listening to my story. If you enjoy tales of the strange and unexplained, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more horror stories every week. Stay safe out there.